All right, good evening, everyone. So we're going to jump on here. I'm going to see how we get this up and going. But this is going to be part four of this four-part webinar series that we're doing with the master title of Delivered. And it's really about giving you the choice, or more importantly, Mom, letting you know that you have a choice. And that's really what we want to focus on at this point is to continue to reiterate this point that you as a mom in your pregnancy has the ability to make your decision and more importantly to choose exactly what you want. So I'm going to let's see, try to figure this out. I guess I can't. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to be able to get it going. Um, but I'm going to I'm going to go share. Perfect. All right. So tonight the topic is going to be encourage, and it's really encouraging you as the captain of your ship or the taking the will to choosing your team and taking again the will of your birth. I guess I should have read that. But it really all comes down to that tonight. We the first week we talked about educating yourself a little bit more, exploring the effects of current birth trends. We talked a lot a bit about the different birth traumas and the different things when we have a non-natural birth, right? And so the other thing that we're talking about, or that we talked about last week, was empowering, and really giving you the opportunity, or reminding you that you are empowered, or empowering you, that you get to be in control of your ideal birth. Tonight we're going to talk about encouraging. We touched on that, and then next week we're going to enhance, really transforming your pregnancy and birth. We're going to bring it all back together next week. So we're excited for this, and let's get started. So again, Dr. Justin with Expressing Life Chiropractic, and really prenatal pediatric chiropractic is just my passion. I've done a lot of work with pediatric kiddos on the spectrum, and that's what's really led me into prenatal chiropractic. My goal, my desire, my mission, my passion is to intercept many of these kiddos that have struggled through their early years that later end up becoming on the spectrum. Whether it's autism, ADHD, they're struggling through life. They're not developing in the way that God intended them to when the body was created and designed. The body is self-healing. There's all kinds of science with that, but the body is self-healing as long as we have no interference. And so that's where chiropractic comes into it. We're not going to dive into that a ton, but we're going to touch on that towards the end of tonight. But that's why I do what I do. That's why we get on here and after hours we talk about this opportunity for you to make that decision, for you to gain the birth team, the birth plan that you want as you go down this process. Because as I've mentioned in the past, you can see my son here, much older than that picture now. I think that was probably 5 years ago, up in the mountains in Oregon, and his story is really what got me into prenatal and pediatric chiropractic. His story, where we had no idea how that we were able to choose. We followed our OBGYN's recommendations. At the time, there was a lot going on. Didn't really know all the stress that was playing into mom. Didn't really know all the stress that was playing into to baby at the time, right, into Jacob. And so it really caused some adverse effects on him, both in utero and during delivery, right? Because he was delivered C-section, and I believe that it was because he was too early. Mom just was not prepared. So, of course, July 3rd, doc says, "Hey, we need to do an emergency C-section." rushes her in, doesn't give her any more time to dilate. And here we are 12 years later. Now, the great thing is he's rocking and rolling. School is amazing. His anxiety levels are next to none. His ADHD levels are next to none. And again, it's all due to what we do here in the office in chiropractic. So the first week, and we're going to review just a couple things here, but the education part of it. What do you envision or what do you picture? Not only a typical pregnancy, but more importantly, your pregnancy. So most of the times we see, or what we know is that, we start on this process, we go down the road, OBGYN visits, we've got ultrasounds, we may do a birth class right before pregnancy, and we end up in a stressed out environment, a stressful hospital birth, right? Well, then we went on to talk about how you get to choose and how can that be different. And you get to really choose your opportunity, whether you want to do a hospital birth, whether you want to go to a birthing center where it's a little bit less stressful, or if you want to do a home birth, right? We also have seen we also talked about having people on your birth team, whether they are chiropractors, right? Somebody that trains, that specializes in prenatal chiropractic, massage and acupuncture, doulas, nutritionists, midwives, right? I know a couple awesome midwives here locally, and they're doing awesome work. They and every time I hear a patient talk about them, they just they can't say anything better than what I've already seen. But it's just all positive experiences with their midwives. They know that they're on their team, and they know that at the end of the day that those midwives are not going to take control. They're not going to boss them around. That they know that themselves are going to be the ones in control, right? Tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about prenatal exercise and the importance of that. And so really, we talked also about balance. And really we touched just a little bit. We're going to go a little bit more tonight. But we touched a little bit about the central nervous system. And, Dr. Bruce Lipton, amazing dude, but I love this quote from him. And he says, you can't be in growth and protection at the same time. And so if our kiddos are stuck in protection, or what we also refer to as the sympathetics, they can't grow, they can't develop, they can't heal, right? And so that's we're gonna dive much more into that and why it's important. We also talked about the different reasons for exploring a more natural birth. So many times we feel like we only have one ability to to really know what we're doing. We only have one ability to or one path, right? And so really this is the road less traveled. Still today, it's becoming more and more traveled, but it's still less traveled than the regular route of OBGYN visits and ending up in a stressed out environment in the hospital. We touched on how you get to stay in control of your birth plan. It's important to trust the process. You have a more comfortable delivery environment, right? It's not as stressed. It's not as loud. It's not, it's not going crazy in the hospital. And more importantly, you actually know the midwife. You know the doula. You've been through this process. I hear so many moms that talk about how they don't end up knowing the OBGYN that will deliver them. The other thing is, you're more likely to achieve your ideal plan. And more importantly, less trauma and lower odds of C-section. We talked about all the things that can come from C-sections. Now, this is not to hate on or to talk negatively about these things. Sometimes they're important, right? But the key again, and that we really want you to understand, is that you get to be in control. We support you 100%, but we want you to know that you get to be in control of what's going on, that you make that decision for you and your baby. And we'll be there to help, to answer questions, to walk you through, and more importantly, to support. So Again, just a couple different people that can be on your birth team, but again, it's important that you take the wheel. Excuse me. And you really want to make sure that you interview and assess each person that's going to be on your team. Really, it comes down to you knowing them and feeling comfortable with them so that you can then have the amazing birth that you want. But we have OBGYN, still a possibility, right? Prenatal chiropractor, again, I can't say enough how important it is to get care from a prenatal chiropractor. Now, we're not all the same, but if we have specialized in prenatal pregnancy chiropractic, and those are the ones you want to go to. That's what we do because it's one of our passions. Yoga and exercise, right? Acupuncture and massage, family and friends are always a good support and should be on your team, but they should not be in charge of what's going on. Midwife, doula, birthing class, and nutritional support. So healthy mom means a happy mom. And a healthy pregnancy really comes down to having a healthy baby. And so it's super important that you are in more of a relaxation state or relaxed state versus that stressed out state. And that's really why we talk about you being in control of what's going on. Yoga and exercise, massage and acupuncture, and a wellness diet. So these are all things that are super important for you to be healthy and happy, and more importantly, for your baby to be healthy and happy. So they can develop, so they can grow, so that nervous system can wire in a stress-free or in a comfortable, relaxed state versus being wired in a stress state. And we talk a lot about nerves that wire together, fire together. So if they're stuck or they wired in a stressful, then they're going to fire all the time in a stressful. And that's what really leads us down to this path of the perfect storm, or the ADHD, the sensory, the autism. All of these come from those nerves being wired together because of the stress. Then they in turn fire in that stress mode as well. So movement and exercise, super important, right? Physical preparation allows greater release of endorphins and less pain during labor. And so it's important to do this throughout your entire pregnancy. Not only is it going to help you reduce stress and anxiety, but it's also going to help you prepare your body for delivery. The other thing is you're going to have a faster postpartum recovery. If you are kind of just sit around, don't really do anything during pregnancy, you're going to have a lot harder time to get back all the things that you need, right? Decreased risk of preterm labor. And so when you're active, the body's going to function much, much better, which is super important because then it's going to, again, decrease that risk of preterm labor where the baby is not in that stress mode. Now, remember, too much stress on the body can hinder delivery. And so that's why it's important to be in a relaxation state. Prenatal exercise is different than exercising what you would do every day for regular health, right? There's different things that you want to do. You're not going to go out and just go crazy like you may do preparing for a marathon or anything along those lines. But again, the point is movement and exercise is going to help decrease that stress. Decreasing that stress is going to help not only the pain during labor, but more importantly, it's going to be a much smoother labor for both you and your baby. So chemical stressors in pregnancy, it's huge. And we're going to look at a slide here in just a minute where it talks about the chemicals inside. But environmental factors and the food we eat also plays a huge part. So we've got physical stress, right? Trauma. That can be an auto accident. That can just be a trip and fall. That can be, whatever. Anything along physical stress. Then we have emotional stress. So if it's a difficult pregnancy or, I have patients all the time tell me, well, we moved during my pregnancy or, I had to quit working or those are all kinds of emotional stresses. The loss of a loved one. And then we have chemical stress. And chemical stress is, again, going to be those environmental, our water, our food, all of that garbage, right? And so that's why it's important. If we jump over, it's important. Well, if we look back, we've got inflammation, and then we've got irritation, which is going to give us some of that pain and interference, right? And that's what we check for here in the office. We check for interference, aka that big S word on the blue there, subluxation. That is what decreases that ability for the brain and the body to communicate properly. And so it's a vicious cycle where that stress just continues to uh, go through and not creates that interference in the nervous system. If we jump over to the right side here, we've got eat clean versus chemical stress, right? We want to eat well, move often versus physical stress. And then we've got be happy. So all these things are important, right? But when we get checked, it's going to help us move more often, which will help decrease that stress. When we then we can also decrease a lot of that emotional stress. We're going to be able to adapt. We're going to be able to coordinate those things much better. And we're just going to be able to express ourselves, not emotionally, but um, neurologically. We're going to have a better neurological expression and perception. So when we've got those negative inputs coming in, we're going to perceive those much better, and the body's going to be able to coordinate that a lot better. And so when we have the picture on the right, when you get checked and you get adjusted, not only does it help remove that interference and subluxation, but now we're able to perceive the stresses coming in. The body can then coordinate with what it needs to do, and we get that positive expression. So the stress decreases instead of increases. Now, this is the chemical stressors in pregnancy, right? And this is pretty incredible. So the umbilical cord is a lifeline between mother and child in a benchmark study. And there's actually a post on Facebook that we just posted earlier today where it really shows a sped up 9 months. And it's pretty incredible when you see the sperm hit the egg, and within 2.5 weeks, the spinal cord and the brain are developed, which is AKA the central nervous system, right? So that's why it's so important. Well, in that video, it shows where the umbilical cord is tied to mom. Again, super important. Again, it's the lifeline, right? That's how they get everything. Well, in a benchmark study, researchers discovered out of 400 possible chemicals, they discovered 287 chemicals in the umbilical cord fluid. Pretty crazy. So that means that there was 287 chemicals in mom's umbilical cord, right? 180 of those are known carcinogens or cause cancer to humans and animals. 217 are toxic to the brain and nervous system. 208 cause birth defects or abnormal development. So pretty crazy out of those 287. I mean, it's just the stuff is super important to make sure the stuff that we put in is the stuff that that's going to give better nutrients to not only mom, but more importantly to baby. And so chemical stress, we have emotional, physical, and chemical. And this is where baby gets a lot of that chemical stress. Total wellness diet, reasons for exploring a more natural birth. It's super important to eat right, right? But you really want to make sure that you start 6 to 12 months before conception. So now there's some of us that do not are not planning to get pregnant, and that's perfectly fine. But if you are, and you're in that state where you want to start, going down the path of becoming pregnant, you want to start changing your diet 6 to 12 months before conception. You want to make sure that you're eating whole, living, and organic foods, not the processed garbage that is so easy to come by. You really make sure that you prioritize healthy fats, right? Avoid additives, dyes, and caffeines during this whole process. And consider proper blood sugar and sodium regulation. And really, when you're eating healthy, when you're eating whole, living, organic foods, your body's going to function better because it's not getting all those toxins that they put into our food over the years. So I can't control everything in my life, but I can control what I put in my body. So a big part of it is making that choice, right? And I get it. Being consistent, being congruent with that sometimes can be hard. But if you make that decision ahead of time that you're going to only put good, whole, nutritious things into your body, it's much easier to accept that and go on with that. And if you fall off, then jump back on. That's the key. Don't beat yourself up for falling off and saying, well, now, I might as well not even continue because I just ruined it. No, that's not the case. Jump back on, eat healthy, and continue to give the proper nutrition, not only to your body, which then turns into giving the proper nutrients so that your baby can develop and grow the way that it's supposed to. Balance is key, and we've seen this video or this slide last week. But really, our goal is to keep your child balanced and connected during the vital first 3 years. And it's super important, right? And so this is why I went towards this prenatal part of it, because we see so many kiddos in here that come in, and their story is they had chemical stresses, they had physical stresses, birth traumas, horrible C-sections, vacuums, even a vaginal delivery can put up to 60 pounds of pressure on a baby's neck or cervical spine. And then emotional stresses. If they were in the NICU, if mom, had a difficult pregnancy, if she was sick all the time, if the relationship wasn't great, all different kinds of things can play into it. And then that leads to subluxation, which is why it's important to get checked. Not only during pregnancy, but also when baby is born. Because again, when we can check them and we can look at that subluxation, they're going to function much more. Dr. Goodham did a research, and I think we talked about this last week as well. But he did some research where he looked at 1,000 babies, and over 80% or over 800 of those newborns had subluxation and were recommended to see a chiropractor within the first few days to remove that subluxation. Now, he was not a chiropractor. He was an MD, but he realized that due to the birth, that these babies underwent stresses, which created that subluxation. And as we've seen over the years, and a lot of the work that one of my mentors, Dr. Tony Ebel, has done, he has really shown that the perfect storm, or these kiddos on the spectrum, is coming from a lot to do with birth trauma, a lot to do with physical, emotional, and chemical stresses on the nervous system. Now, this physical, chemical, and emotional stress is not something new. It's something that's been around for quite some time. And it's really what chiropractic has been tied to from the beginning, all the way back to D.D. Palmer's time. So excessive stress or stress hormones may inhibit labor via oxytocin disruption. So why do you think that many times in the hospital they have to put Pitocin to try to get you to dilate? Well, it's because the oxytocin is disrupted because of stress. So it's not allowing you to dilate. And we talked about that before, that the stress will cause the body to go into lockdown mode or survival mode. And, well, giving birth is not a survival necessity, right? So it shuts the whole process down. The body and brain are in constant communication, and both need to be at ease for a successful natural delivery. So again, if we're in a stressed out area, hospital, noises are going off, we don't know the doctor, we're getting irritated, whatever it may be, we're not at ease. And that's why we see so many complications. The body and the brain are always talking to each other. The message may get construed if there's too much stress or interference in that message pathway. So it's just like the old game of telephone, right? I think that's what it's called. Or you tell the guy next to you something and you hope that it gets all the way back around to you the exact same way. Well, growing up as kids, we learned that that usually doesn't happen. And it's the exact same thing. So as the brain sends information out to the body, and the body responds, somewhere along that line, that does not give the proper communication. So now that increases stress. Stress then creates this ability for the body not to function, and you do not have the successful natural delivery that you want. And that's why it is so important. We're going to back up here because I love this one. But that's why it's so important to get checked. As a mom, and even as a kiddo, as a dad, whoever it may be, in our office we have state-of-the-art equipment that can check to see how that communication between your body and brain is actually functioning. It's pretty amazing what we've seen with these scans, but they're able to tell us exactly what's going on. So a lot of times we'll see moms come in here and they are stressed the heck out, and even kiddos, right? When we scan newborns as well, which is pretty awesome that we have technology that can tell us not only can we feel it with our hand, but we have technology to be able to scan and then show you. It is harmless. There's no radiation. There's nothing that goes into it, into the body. But more importantly, it looks for that interference in the nervous system. It looks for interference in that communication between the body and the brain. And so this is why it's important for you to be in charge, to be able to pick who you want on your team. Chiropractic and pregnancy are extremely important to help you to be at ease, to really have that successful and natural delivery. So, if you have more questions on the scans or how they work, please reach out to us because we want to make sure that you have those questions answered. But that's what we do here in the office, and it's pretty amazing. And we do follow-up scans to make sure that your nervous system is adapting, right? Because if we go back, we talked about how the nervous system should adapt. And when we get to this part, the perception, right? We should receive or perceive that information, and then the body is supposed, or the nervous system, I should say, not the body per se, but the nervous system is supposed to then coordinate and express that information. Well, a lot of times that gets all jumbled up and it can't function and express the way that it's supposed to. So again, this is all about you being educated and really encouraging you to make the decision after empowering yourself to take control of your pregnancy, to take control of your birth, so that you can have the amazing birth and pregnancy that you've always wanted, whether this is your first, whether this is your fourth. The important thing is you get to make that decision. And so that's what we want to share with you tonight. We have one more next week, and then we're going to be actually doing a presentation live in about 2 to 3 weeks that we'll let everybody know about. But it's going to be we're also going to be looking at doing a couple Facebook Live interviews with a couple of the prenatal, or I'm sorry, with a couple midwives. Maybe we'll even try to find some doulas, but definitely some midwives to get this information and to let them share with you their love for what they do. Every midwife that I've come across just love the idea that mom gets to choose. And that's right where we're at. We want you to choose that. So again, the next one is going to be enhance that decision. And that's going to be next week on October 2nd. If you are interested, we also have an upcoming workshop, ADHD and sensory. And you can find that information on our Facebook page. And we're going to do that on the next Thursday. So that'll be the 4th of October as well. But if you want or you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to call the office, to message us. We would love to answer your questions and point you in the right direction. And even more importantly, if you don't have a chiropractor that is trained in prenatal or pediatric chiropractic, give us a call. If you're not local, let us know. We can help find someone because we train and work with some amazing prenatal and pediatric chiropractors across the country and really now across the world. And so really keep us posted, but we're here to help you and to be part of your team as you embark on this amazing journey. Thank you for your time, and you all have a great night.